Welcome into For FF's Sake. Evan Harris here. Glad to bring you another episode, and we have a familiar guest. He came on a few weeks ago to break down some quarterbacks with us. Ryan, introduce yourself to the watchers.
Hi, everyone. I was on a few weeks ago. We were talking about some quarterbacks and quarterbacks we value this year. I'm a writer over at Dynasty Nerds and Dynasty Pros, and happy to be here. Happy to be back.
He's got some good articles. Actually, our first conversation started because of one of those articles about Derek Carr. We're not going to get into all that today. We're going to talk about a team that is being disrespected, Ryan. And I'm excited for the passion that is going to come from your bellows of your being, because this is your team. You can be as Homer as you want to be. You just go get donuts, Homer, okay? For your New York Giants. And I have a little bit of Homerism with the New York Giants. My dad is from New Jersey. He grew up as a Giants fan until the Titans came around in 1999, I think it was, when they were Tennessee Oilers, and then the Titans. We watched the Giants, and when they won the Super Bowl, we were watching them as well, and Strahan and the boys doing work with Eli. So I'm a distant fan. Maybe they're my NFC team. Can I say that? Is that allowed?
Okay. That's allowed.
I'll give you that much. I don't hate them as much as I hate other teams that are not the Titans. But we're going to talk about these guys because there's a lot of players on this team that at one point or another in their career were a lot higher ADP. And right now it feels like they are still being slept on. We're going to talk about the guys. But first, before we talk about individual players, I want to know from a fan perspective, what's the mood? What's the general sense around Brian Daboll and what effect he could have on this team?
I think, speaking for all the Giants fans, we are so excited. We haven't had a coach of his caliber. I know he's a first-time head coach, but he was the offensive coordinator for the Bills. And look where the Bills just got. Look at Josh Allen and look at that offense. So I'm really, really excited for what he can do. Daniel Jones has a similar skill set, maybe not the same arm, but he's a mobile quarterback, likes to run, likes to throw. He's not afraid to do all those crazy dives that Josh Allen does. And I think they did some really, really good moves with the new GM, also from the Bills, on the offensive line, which is really, really going to help Jones, Saquon, the offense as a whole. The offensive line was terrible last year, and they made some really, really good picks this draft, especially the first round. So I'm really, really excited. I think he's going to change the whole offense, and I think the Giants are kind of slept on right now. I think people are putting them bottom of the NFC East, but
the Josh Allen thing with Daniel Jones, it's something to look at, right? We're not saying Daniel Jones is Josh Allen, but if I were to tell you, hey, I'm going to tell you about this quarterback who, after his rookie year, looked inconsistent at best throwing the football, threw some passes that you were like, oh my gosh, look at that arm. And then some passes that you're like, what was he thinking? But man, he's got some legs and he can move and he can run away from guys.
Yeah.
I could be talking about Josh Allen or Daniel Jones in that scenario, both after the rookie year. Now the difference is coaching, right? I mean, at least the big piece of it. I'd love to see what Josh Allen would have turned into under Joe Judge and Jason Garrett last year. I'm just saying.
Oh, man.
Maybe there's something to this Brian Daboll effect. And we'll jump right into it because Daniel Dimes, we've already talked about quarterbacks. We mentioned him before, but we didn't say enough, Ryan. His ADP is still too low. He is the redraft quarterback 28 off the board, and he is the dynasty quarterback 32 off the board. All of the rookies are above him. Everybody's like, you know what? Give me Desmond Ridder. Give me Matt Corral, even though he might be third string on his team after Baker Mayfield gets traded there. Yeah. Give me these guys. Don't give me the former first-round draft pick, top 10 pick, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I don't want that guy with the rushing upside. Are you kidding me? One thing I want to say about Daniel Dimes before I just let you unleash on this. is if you go back and watch Daniel Jones in the spread offense, where everything's spread out, where the reads are easier, more decisive, the arm talent's there. He looks really good, but for some reason, that's not what Joe Judge decided to do last year a whole lot. I think he had one of the highest PFF grades in spread rated offense, which is saying something because they were behind in a lot of games. So, I mean, defensive lines could tee off against that pretty bad offensive line last year. So to see that lets me know, oh, guess who likes running the spread offense? The Bills last year. Who was their OC? As we mentioned, Brian Daboll. So that is one little tidbit about Daniel Jones that I think I don't see a lot of people talking about. Ryan, let's hear it. Daniel Jones, are you drafting him before the 28th quarterback in redraft this year?
Oh, 100%. I think 28 is like criminally low. I think he has it in him to be, I think he'll be a top 20 quarterback this year, which like we were talking about earlier was even if he's not top 12, if he's being ranked as top 28 and he finishes top 20, even if he is QB 20, QB 19, that's already
a huge return on
investment.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about, people. You're drafting him at 28. Don't come at us with the pitchforks and say he didn't finish as a quarterback one. Look, is that in his range of outcomes? I don't think it's crazy to say that's in his range of outcomes. I'm not telling you to draft him as your quarterback one. But if you're in the 15th, 16th round of a redraft or 14th, 15th, whatever it is, and you haven't taken the quarterback yet and your team's loaded, I don't think Daniel Jones is a bad guy to grab or a bad guy to bet on. I've spent a 4th round pick for him in dynasties, Ryan. So what's his dynasty value?
I think it should be a lot higher than QB 32. I think the rankings, especially with like, you know how there's rookie fever. I think all the rookies come in with, which by the way has like, this class has like the lowest draft capital ever for rookies, besides Kenny Pickett, who a lot of people didn't even think was worthy of a first rounder either. So I don't think it's fair to put him below those guys already when those guys haven't even touched the NFL field yet. I think that's going to be something. I think his value is going to rise a lot after this season and what the new coaching staff do with him. And even for redraft, I think like he's totally worth a flyer in your later rounds, especially if I know a lot of people, if it's a 1 QB league, they say don't even bother drafting 2 quarterbacks, but I think it's good to have a backup. You don't want to have to be stuck with like Carson Wentz or like Matt Corral or something off the waiver wire because your quarterback got injured.
I have 2 strategies in redraft. I either get a top quarterback who I think is a top 5 finisher, or I fade it till the cows come home, and then I'm going to draft 2 quarterbacks and I'm going to play matchups. Daniel Jones could be a great quarterback to play matchup with.
Oh, 100% agree, especially with his legs. Like last year, he was running so much in the early season. He was playing really well in the early season. In week 2, he ran for 95 yards. Like with a touchdown, rushing touchdown. Like he has the upside. So he's definitely worth I that method where you draft 2 quarterbacks, I do the same thing. I just go for value guys in like round 7 or 8. Like this year, on top of Daniel Jones, if I can grab like Derek Carr or Kirk Cousins, guys who people are a little bit slept on because of the lack of rushing upside, and then just get Daniel Jones as your backup QB on the bench, I think you're golden there. I think Jones is a huge value, and they're pretty much being valued, everyone on the Giants, as if it's still Joe Judge there and still Jason Garrett and Gettleman and stuff like that. Like I think people they're not being valued as high as they should be because of the changes. They're still being valued as they were last year, based on last year, but everything's going to change this year.
Look what happens to players that get off of bad offenses and get onto good offenses. Odell Beckham, everybody thought he was done. He was old. He was broke down. And then all he did was go to the Rams with a good offense and scored like 8 touchdowns down the stretch. Was looking really good in the Super Bowl before he got hurt.
Yeah, touchdown.
Bad offense.
For the first touchdown of the Super Bowl.
Yeah, first touchdown of the Super Bowl. I wonder who had that bet. Anyways, Daniel Jones is going possibly from a bad offense to a good offense, at least from a play calling standpoint. And if you're going to sit here and tell me, oh, the Giants offense wasn't that bad last year, and I'm not talking about from the players, I'm talking about from the play calling. There was no rhyme or reason. It's why I think a lot of these guys are being slept on. But it's also why I think not only did they go hire a coach who comes with, a well-respect, but they went for an offensive coach. They didn't go for a defensive coach. They went for an offensive coach. They didn't target a big-name quarterback in free agency. They didn't target a big-name quarterback in the draft. This isn't even one of those teams that drafted one of those third or fourth round guys when they had 5 shots at them. They let them fade. I think that the owner of the team was right when he said they have done everything to not let Daniel Jones succeed, and they owe him that opportunity. And I think he's shown glimpses of it. So we won't beat a dead horse, but I think we're on the same page on this one.
For sure, yeah. Jones is definitely a huge value, huge steal at his current ADP. And that's not even acknowledging not just the coaching staff and GM, but the offensive line got a huge upgrade. That's going to be so good for him. He improved on his ball security a lot. Like his rookie season, it was like turnover machine, and it's a lot better now. Better offensive line. The offense as a whole is going to have a huge boost.
One thing I'll be interested to see this year is I think Daniel Jones has something that Marcus Mariota had, where he wants to throw to the wide open guy and is sometimes afraid to throw the contested play. And I think they're going to have to get that out of him this year. So that'll be interesting to watch. You talked about the offensive line. There's another guy over there that's going to really appreciate that upgraded offensive line, and that is Saquon Barkley, who right now is going – I've seen him at the end of the second, early third in redraft leagues. I've seen him in dynasties go sometimes later than that. This is a guy who – Saquon Barkley's what? Is 24, 25 years old still? Is he 26 yet? What's the age?
Let me double check. I believe he's 25 right now.
Okay. While you look that up, Barkley's still a young man by all accounts. He's been banged up, some just unlucky injuries last year. He had the major injuries before that. But still, coming off a major injury last year, he was a top 8 redraft running back. Got up to speed in some games, started to look himself again. I know some people, myself included, got some value for him after he came back and looked like himself in some redraft leagues last year. The fact that he's going the end of the second round is preposterous to me. And no, don't get me wrong, like the league's moved right more to passing, and I think you're going to see more receivers go in the first 15 picks this year than ever before in one
especially in
leagues.
PPR.
Oh yeah, especially in PPR. I mean, it's absurd. But Barkley is a guy who has never been a value. Even going back to his rookie year, he was drafted in like the top 5 picks his rookie year. He is now officially a value. So my question for you is Saquon Barkley the injured running back who gets healthy and goes on to have another RB1 season, or is he David Johnson? Because those are the 2 outcomes we have to look at. Barring injury, can he be that guy again? And we don't predict injury, but it's, he's been banged up, so it's fair to say.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Barkley this year from a fans perspective and from a dynasty owners?
So I'll start with redraft. I think back end of the second, early third is a complete steal, I think. I expect big things from him. He just confirmed he's only 25 years old.
Okay.
And people forget last year he tore his ACL 2 years ago. So last year, before last year started, that whole offseason was just rehab. He didn't get to train at all. And so he was 1 year removed from a torn ACL. Now, after going into this year, he's had a full year of back to full offseason of training, getting right to work with the new coaching staff and everything like that. I think that's a huge reason why last year he had some problems as well. Like, people forgot that he tore his ACL the year before. So now he's 2 years removed from that. The offensive line is going to benefit him huge, more than anybody. PPR leagues especially, in terms of a value standpoint, he's going as, according to Fantasy Pros PPR, he's about RB 14 right now. In his rookie year, he was the PPR 1 like overall RB1 in his rookie year. No one else around that area, back end, second, first round, and third, has had the capability of being an overall RB1 or has done it before.
Yeah.
And his second year after that, he was RB10 overall in PPR. So when he's healthy and has a competent offensive line, he is a star. He's the RB1. I think this year he is an absolute steal at RB14. Dynasty perspective, like I said, he's only 25. Like, he has a long ways to go. Upgrades to the offensive line. I think the last in that creator league that we're in, that we talked about last episode, that I was on, I think he got drafted at the 408. I think.
Gosh.
I think 408. So, I mean, even that is pretty much a steal. Getting Saquon in the 4th round of a startup. I know age takes precedent there, so all the 21-year-olds, the 22-year-olds are getting a boost, but I think that's also
one other note, right? In that league we're trying to win now, it's a little bit different version of a dynasty league.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. But even then, even if you're trying to win now, getting him in the 4th round.
Yeah, I mean, he should be higher, not lower.
Yeah.
Now, I took Derrick Henry, I think, in the early 4th round, like 402. And I thought about Barkley there, and I was like, I'm going to go with my guy. I'm going to be a homer and take my guy there. So,
I mean, Henry's still Henry. So,
yeah. The interesting thing for Barkley, and we've already talked about Daboll a lot, is Daboll's never had a running back like this. He's never had a pure, just mismatched guy. And look at how much they threw the ball to Singletary last year. They wanted to do that. They wanted to get him involved. And now he has a guy that can catch the ball, can get out in space. He's not going to be caught up in all the traffic all the time. It's interesting there. I would have liked to seen the Giants draft one of those 5th round running backs, only from the standpoint of, I think if you're going to be splitting them out that much, you need another guy back there. And I would have loved it from a fantasy perspective, because it would have just made I want to see people freak out about him like they are about Antonio Gibson. Please would have if the Giants would have drafted Brian Robinson Jr. in the 3rd round, the same spot, you would have been just like collecting Saquon Barkley for steals. Like, whoever drafts him in the 5th round was going to be winning leagues if he stays healthy. Like, it's just absurd. So
yeah, if his value dropped as much as Gibson's, I would have a Saquon share in every single dynasty.
Can't diversify. It's too good.
Yeah, even Gibson is another one. Like, people are scared of what? Like, he had a slight injury last year. I think he still played 13 or 14 games. He only missed a couple. I don't know. I think like Saquon could have a Joe Mixon type season. People faded Joe Mixon this year.
That's it. That's the comp.
And Joe Mixon was a star this year. I actually just put out an article about Joe Mixon. I think he could be top 5 again next year.
Ryan, I think you unlocked the comp right there. Mixon got an improved offensive line, got a better offense, exploded. Was that guy that we all thought for a while he could be, and then finally paid off. And you probably won your league or came close. You were in the playoffs if you drafted Mixon in the late. I mean, he was going late into the 2nd last year, sometimes in the 3rd.
Yeah, I think in my league he went mid-2nd, but that's a 16-team league. So in like a regular 12 or 10, that's the end of the 2nd, early 3rd.
You guys are fighting over Curtis Samuel in the 10th round.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. When you're in a 16-team league, it is like you're drafting guys you have not heard of. The waiver wire is so bare. So the draft is a lot more important in a big league like that, because the waiver wire is like just scraps. Like, people will be fighting over Duke Johnson. So.
You can't have him. How does this affect Marlon Mack? No, I already have Marlon Mack. I drafted him in the 10th. Sorry. Anyways, next guy. Let's move on. We got Kenny Golladay. This is a guy who broke rosters last year because he did not live up to the hype. Can he bounce back? He had a wide receiver 2 season about 4 years ago, then finished with a wide receiver 1 season the year after.
Yeah.
Kind of fell off due to injury. big money signing by the Giants.
Oh,
And
huge.
unfortunately for Golladay, his play caller was playing Madden against professionals, and he was still couldn't beat teams on rookie mode, like
Yeah.
struggling. So Kenny Golladay also got frustrated with Daniel Jones last year at times, got frustrated with play calling. We saw the explosion on the sidelines. He's just a tremendous talent from a body control standpoint, from a big contested catch guy. We all love Michael Pittman because he's a contested catch freak, right? What can Golladay be this year? And the key for Golladay to succeed this year is that offense has to get in the red zone more.
For sure. I think he's going to also benefit a lot from just the offense getting better as a whole. I know a lot of people were burned last year, especially because he got signed that huge contract. So sometimes you got to follow the money. You assume he's going to have a huge year after them paying him so much money, and he just did not perform. He's going as the WR55 right now, which is like, I get he burned a lot of people. That's like pretty low for considering a guy who was capable of being WR1 at one point. I'm not saying he's going to be WR1, maybe not even WR2, but I don't think he'll end up finishing as WR55. I think he's a really good dart throw when you're drafting that late, especially in redraft. Might not have a whole lot of dynasty value anymore, but for redraft, he's a great dart throw, great value there. Even the other, like all the receivers on the Giants are pretty low in the rankings, like in terms of their ADP. And I think like someone's got to catch these passes, guys. So there's a lot of targets up in the air, and Kenny Golladay is the most experienced receiver on the roster. So I think they're going to try and use him a lot more. I think Daboll is going to use him a lot more. He's really going to benefit. The entire offense is going to have such a huge boost from finally having like a competent coaching staff. And Daniel Jones is a really good deep ball thrower. Like he has a really, really clean deep ball. And I think Slayton really burned a lot of people last year as well. A lot of drops, inconsistent. I think they're going to start using Golladay a lot more because of that, and kind of phase Slayton out a bit now that they have Golladay, Shepard, Wan'Dale, and Kadarius Toney. And I think they're going to try and use Golladay a lot more. He's the most experienced, and he's shown he's capable already. He's already proved it.
This is a guy who was being drafted in top 6 rounds last year because everybody believed in the talent and he got paid. Interesting to see Christian Kirk, kind of being in the same situation. He's the big money free agent guy. He's set up to be the wide receiver 1 on his team with an unproven quarterback. Curious to watch that one. Is it a repeat? And then we're just not going to go ever draft the number 1 or shocker, I guess, in free agency, right? Golladay, interesting one to watch. I don't know if there's ever been a year where I am so high on so many receivers. I saw somebody put on Twitter the other day, like, how many top 24 receivers are there this year? Because everybody's like, this guy could be a top 24 receiver. This guy could be a top. The range of outcomes is crazy this year. And part of that is, right, the NFL is going to more of a pass-happy league. The other part of that is some of these guys just have such a wide range of outcomes. So some of the players being drafted around Golladay that I saw were Allen Lazard actually right before him and Rondale Moore right after him. So both of those guys have people that are all truth on him. Like, yeah, I've seen people say Allen Lazard could be a top 10 receiver this year, which thank God he's not being drafted as that. Yeah. But I mean, if you think in your middle late rounds he can be that, all more power to you. But I don't know if there's a player with a bigger range of outcomes. I mean, I'm sure there is. I'm sure we can talk about several, but you're talking about a guy who could he be that guy? Everybody's like, Devontae Adams was kind of and then boom. Could it happen? Sure. Could he also be 4th on the depth chart? Sure. Rondale Moore, man, I was so out on Rondale Moore's rookie, and then he got drafted to like what I felt like was the perfect fit, and he had some boom moments. And then I was like, all right, I'm going to back off again. And then Hopkins got suspended, and I'm like right back in there. I went back and watched him before I acquired some shares of Rondale Moore in the offseason. And I don't mean to like completely steal this segment here, but Rondale Moore surprisingly took a ton of snaps out of the backfield. Not like a true Devo role where he was getting handoffs, but a ton of snaps out of the backfield. When Edmonds wasn't on the field, Rondale Moore was in the backfield catching passes, catching swing passes, motioning out into the slot. I think that's what they're going to use him with. With Edmonds and Christian Kirk gone, I think Rondale Moore can have a hybrid role of what both of them were last year. And that's exciting to me. But we're talking about all these guys that are really late. We think their ADPs are too low, but who do you freaking put them over? Because everybody has that just wild range of outcomes.
Yeah, for sure. Especially, actually, I was a big Rondale Moore fan as well. I thought he was about to have his explosion, and then they paired Kyler up with his college teammate there.
Happens.
I love that spot for Hollywood as well. I think Hollywood's a kind of a steal too. I think he's being undervalued a slight bit. I feel like people think that leaving Lamar would be bad for him, but Kyler's a better passer than Lamar. And Kyler and Marquise Brown played, I think, 2 seasons together already in college. So they've already built a connection. And Hopkins is out, even for Moore. Hopkins is out for the first 6 games. Yeah. And Hopkins was injured last year. So who knows the shape he's in when he's back.
6 or 8. I thought it was 8 games for some reason.
Oh, is it 8 games? Oh, that's...
I'm not being wrong.
Even better for them.
So
I think they're going to have a lot of open targets, especially Christian Kirk is gone. Hopkins missing half of it. So Moore and Brown could also both explode next year. I think they're going to throw it a lot more because they let Chase Edmonds go. And what else is there? I think they just signed Darrell Henderson, right?
So let me ask you, right? So we're talking about those 3 guys. If you're sitting there and Moore, Lazard, and Golladay are all up for grabs, the probably surest thing to a team's wide receiver one is Golladay. The largest possible upside, but also lowest floor is probably Lazard. And then you have Moore, who's a question mark, but could shock everybody and just be this freaky weapon. Of those 3 guys on the board, who are you drafting?
This might go against the podcast and go against the Giants here, but I think I'd go Lazard there. I think I'm really curious. Aaron Rodgers is throwing somebody. And I don't know if Christian Watson's going to come out and just boom. So I'd go Lazard there just because at that point, you're throwing darts. You know what I mean? If you're that low in the draft, that late in the draft, you're throwing darts. I'd probably go Lazard there and then Golladay. I'd actually put Moore the latest, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, I think Lazard and Golladay, same thing. Like both have a huge range of outcomes. They can either boom or they can have a completely like unrelevant season completely and just not perform at all. I think Lazard is a lot more people are there's a lot more Lazard truthers out there. I guess because he hasn't burned anyone. Golladay did last year, but Lazard, no one ever expected a whole lot. But there's a lot more expectations going into this season. But that's why you can get Golladay as such a steal, because I don't think Lazard will ever have a season like Golladay has with Stafford. So
I'm intrigued by Lazard, but I think I'm almost opposite of you. I think I'm drafting Rondale Moore. I am fading Lazard, and I'm trading for Golladay because I think you can get him cheaper in trades right now than you can get him in the draft. As weird as that sounds.
That is true. Yeah. Some people, trading is a whole other thing besides that game. Yeah. And trading, you can play your league mates a bit, whereas the draft is just like grab who you can. But when you get to trading, you can.
Well, like we're talking about those 3 names, right? But if we were going in trade discussions, Galladay's like clearly at the bottom of the trade discussion for some reason, even though they're all being drafted near each other.
Yeah, people are treating Golladay like just a throw-in guy now. Take that dart throw. He can have a boom season. Even if he doesn't have a boom,
yeah,
he can really, really outperform his WR55 like redraft ranking. Even if he comes out as WR35, that's you got 20 spots higher than your investment on that.
Look, you can't go trade a 3rd round pick for Rondale Moore. It's not going to happen. You can't maybe to the right person get a 3rd-round pick for Lazard, maybe, but all day, every day, Galladay's going for 3rd-round picks in your leagues. So just a thought. This next player is one that I am scared to death to touch and just am preparing myself that I could be wrong. Kadarius Toney. He showed up like a stick of dynamite last year. This was a guy that when I watched him on film, I thought, it's not a great route runner. He kind of catches the ball with his body. What does he do after he gets the ball? Yeah, he's electric. Good luck tackling with just one guy. But when I watched the film, I thought this is a gadget guy. Now, last year, maybe I slightly got proved wrong in a sense because, he was a target hog for those couple of games, and then we hear the head case stuff and all that. What are you doing with Kadarius Toney? Because I'm scared to touch him.
He was that was the most the player with the most question marks, especially things have really changed in the past few months. Like going into the draft, there was huge trade rumors, people calling in, allegedly calling the Giants or them shopping him around. And then when they go and reach for Wan'Dale, so they reach for Wan'Dale. So at the time, I thought they would only make that reach because he's the replacement.
Being traded.
Yeah, so that just furthered me and most people thinking, okay, he's definitely getting traded. But then 2 weeks after that, there's pictures of him sleeping at the training facility and stuff. So I don't know what to make of that situation. As of right now, it seems like he's here to stay. All the trade rumors have calmed down. I think he seems like a guy with Daboll's system can benefit a lot. I think he's going to have if he can stay healthy, he can have a huge role in this system. Because when he gets the ball, like you said, he's electric. He can get open. He's really crafty with his footwork and stuff like that. That game against Dallas was unreal. He had 189 yards that game. The game before, I had it here. He went for 78 yards the first game, and then boom for 189 yards against Dallas. Now, keep in mind, he only really played a full, maybe 3 games in terms of full as a starter. The season started with him barely even getting any snaps. Week 1, he had 8% snap percentage. And every other game, only his New Orleans game, he was 78%. Every other game was 66 or lower. So they were still trying to figure out how to use him. I think he could be really big in Daboll's system. If he can stay healthy, I think they're going to really try to use him a lot. And as far as right now, if you're sleeping in the training facility, I think you're here to stay. So don't see him getting traded anytime soon. He's also a great dart throw. He's not as low as Golladay, but right now he's going as WR 47. So that's right under Michael Gallup and right above Russell Gage. I think he can have a way. Out of those 3 guys, I think he has the realm of possibility of really smashing that ADP a lot more than those guys do. Russell Gage is a sleeper this year, though. I just want to put that out there. But
yeah, if I'm in redraft, I want Gage over either of those guys. If I'm in Dynasty, that's where Toney becomes more interesting, right? So
for sure, yeah.
The argument I've told myself anytime I've thought about drafting Toney is, what would a 23-year-old Kadarius Toney look like in the role that Beasley and Sanders had last year? And
I think the Beasley role is the one that will really unlock his PPR potential.
Yeah.
That's kind of how they used him in Dallas too. He just got reception after reception. I think he had 10 or 11 that game.
And then try to let the first guy tackle him. That was the plan.
Yeah.
See if he can do it. So I think that's the argument I've made for myself when I'm I'm going to draft him, but I can't. I keep pulling the trigger. Maybe it's the Florida Gator thing coming out of me. I think we all have our biases. I'm a Tennessee fan, and I hate Florida football team more than I hate more than I hate Alabama, and they beat us senseless all the time. So
Okay.
maybe that's it, but I don't know, man. I think there's dart throws, and then there's close your eyes, throw over your shoulder, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think the latter is Toney for me. And it's good. He's definitely that guy that I'm not bullish enough to say he's a bust. He's nothing. Don't draft him. I just think for me personally, it's a headache I don't want to have to worry about. If I can get him cheap enough in Dynasty, sure, I'll grab him. But last year he did. You talked about the snap percentage, right? He didn't see the field early. Part of that was he had trouble picking up the playbook. They talked about that. There was a report, I think, after the first game. They're like, "Why didn't your first round pick not see the field?" He's like, "Well, when he can run the plays, we'll play him." And then I think they got forced to play him. And I'd say Toney's probably a gamer. Now I don't know. Is Daboll a guy that's going to put out a gamer, or is he going to put out a guy that he knows is going to run the play the right way? You get those guys involved differently. If they're athletic enough and a weapon, you just make it happen. But I guess I have too many questions around him personally for me. Last receiver we'll talk about is Wan'Dale Robinson. I heard you as a fan say he was a reach earlier. Do you like the pick? Do you not like the pick? There were some other guys still on the board when he got drafted.
Yeah, so I'll go into this part. I like him as a player.
Yep.
I think as a player, he's great. I think Daboll will do great with him. I just think at the time, was it a reach? I think it was. I like the player, not the landing, not the draft capital. Especially if they were eyeing him out of everyone who's still on the board. Like, you probably could have traded down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially, I didn't think wide receiver was a pressing need.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess at the time, this was at the height of the Kadarius drama. So they're looking for replacements, things like that. But like Sky Moore was still on the board. If you're going wide receiver, I would have rathered them go Sky Moore instead. But I am happy with Wan'Dale. It seems like the GM and the head coach, like both of them seem like they have a specific mindset and plan for him. And that's what they kept saying multiple times after. So I think they're going to do big things with him.
So they did not draft a running back, but they drafted a guy who played some running back in college in Wan'Dale Robinson. Now, Wan'Dale is a little bit of a twig to be a running back in the NFL. He's 185, but he's 5'8". And the thing that was interesting to me about that is you look at the heights of Buffalo running backs, Singletary and Moss are both sniffing 5'9", if that, right? So obviously Daboll's not afraid of shorter running backs. I think he's an interesting weapon out of the backfield. I think they could use him like Kurt or Moore was used, right? Swing passes out of the backfield. I think you could see a formation this year where Wan'Dale's lined up in the backfield and Saquon's in the slot. Like, what kind of mind screw would that do to you? If you're a defensive coordinator and a linebacker out there, like, okay, do I put my, my third corner on Saquon and I have the shifty back out of the backfield, or vice versa? There's some interesting things there. So I'm really curious to see how they use him. I thought it was a reach too. Wan'Dale Robinson was a guy I was excited about in the draft, and then I saw his measurables, height and weight, and I was really pushed off, which I think a lot of guys were. I will say this, though. I think when I watched film on him, he's a more versatile athlete than Sky Moore. Sky Moore, I think, is more elite in the things that he does well. But I think it did not shock me in the least that the offensive-minded coach wanted the guy that he feels like he can get creative with, right? And that's Wan'Dale Robinson. So that piece of it's interesting. Wan'Dale's a guy targeted in rookie drafts. I didn't get many of them. I think I've seen him go at the end of third round of rookie drafts, though, and I think that's a little bit of a steal. I think he's a guy you can trade for right now because Toney didn't get traded as well. So he's a trade value. Of the three receivers we talked about, Toney, Robinson, Golladay, if you had to bank your fantasy season on one of them succeeding, which one would it be?
Like you said before, we can't predict injuries. So perfect world, they play every single game. I think Toney would probably have the best numbers,
Okay.
especially with the new system. I think Tony's there, and he went in the first round. People forget he's got the draft capital, so they're gonna try their best to use him. They have hyped up Wan'Dale a lot, but I actually think Toney, especially in PPR formats, is gonna be if he stays healthy, he could be a cheat code in PPR format, especially at his current ADP.
He went in the first round, but so did Jalen Rager, and that hadn't worked out too well for him. So just throwing it out there.
That's true. Yeah.
Now,
their Philly is still living that down.
Yeah.
But as a Giants fan, it's fun to watch the Eagles burn.
Former staff as well, though, which is interesting. Not the same staff that drafted him. So how much weight does that draft capital carry is interesting.
That is true. It's kind of similar to the I love Travis Etienne and fantasy Twitter. He is fantasy Twitter darling.
Yeah.
Like we hype him up so much that his ADP is actually going to go too high that we can't even draft him.
That's it.
But same thing, like he got drafted first round, which a lot of people I don't think were expecting, especially by the Jags, who just took Trevor Lawrence too, with the different staff, with Urban Meyer gone now.
James Robinson. Sorry.
Yeah, like especially after James Robinson had such a huge year, like using a first rounder on a running back, I don't think was a good idea. People said that was Urban Meyer's deal. Same kind of situation. Urban Meyer's gone. Yeah. So how's the new staff going to use him? I think the situation is a little different because Etienne had like an elite profile. But same thing with Toney. I think from what he's shown last year when he was healthy and got the snaps, I think he proved that he can be like really electric with the ball, and they're going to try to get him the ball as much as they can.
Yeah.
But Saquon will definitely lead the offense in touches for sure. I think Saquon, that rookie year that he was RB1, had about 121 targets, I think. I wouldn't be surprised if he 110, 120 targets again this year. They've already said they want to line him up more. Maybe those snaps where they have Wan'Dale coming out of the backfield, Saquon's going to be lining up with the receivers. You never know. I think they're going to make some really interesting plays out of their new guys in this new offensive line.
So to just piggyback on the Etienne thing really quick, you can make a ton of arguments for Etienne breaking out this year. I'll let you make them. Do not sit here and tell me that Urban Meyer was an idiot and then say draft capital though for Etienne. Like, if he's an idiot, does the draft capital really matter? Just one note on that. What I will say to kind of wrap up our Giants talk is one of these guys, without a doubt, is going to be a potential, or let me back it up. I don't want to say a league winner. One of these guys, without a doubt, is going to overachieve their current ADP. And
sure.
We're all just trying to hit on the right one. I think most likely to overachieve ADP is Daniel Jones, just because that ADP is ridiculous. And you're not drafting him to be your quarterback one, just heads up. And then I think Saquon Barkley is probably the safest if we're talking out of all the guys.
For sure, yeah. Especially sitting at RB14, a previous overall RB1. I think that's a safe pick for speaking of draft capital, I think Saquon, I don't know if he was the highest running back drafted like ever at number 2 overall. I don't know if anyone's ever gone number 1 overall running back, but
oh yeah, back in the 60s, I'm sure, like all the time.
Yeah, maybe actually.
What's crazy is CMC, Christian McCaffrey has a similar situation to Barkley over the last 2 years, and everybody's like, CMC still 102 in terms of running backs. Like, some people I've seen argue him over Jonathan Taylor, which I don't think there's a conversation. If CMC plays a full 16-game season, he is the RB1.
Oh, 100%. The receiving work he gets is unreal, especially in PPR. And Taylor just doesn't get that receiving work. Like, there was a game last season where Taylor ran for 100 yards. So in real life, that's amazing. Ran for 100 yards. But he didn't catch any passes that game, so he only got you 10 points.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have a touchdown. And he lost people weeks because of that. But in real life, 100 yards, 100 yards. But TFC makes up for that with 5-6 receptions a game.
through the first 3 weeks last year, Jonathan Taylor was like RB 22. Like he had a really good week 1 and then like 7 and 4 points. And I'm sure people were like super panicking.
Yeah, people are worried.
And then he went on. One thing about Jonathan Taylor is he had a ton of points in the game against Buffalo. He had 5 touchdowns, 4 rushing, 1 receiving. Yeah. It was a 50-point game. And don't get me wrong, we're not here to say, well, let's take away a game and all that. But if you do take away that game, it's a little bit different numbers. And I get it. He won people weeks that week, but Alvin Kamara did the same thing in championships the year before.
Oh, yeah.
Had a stupid game. So anyways, any parting words for us, Ryan? Any articles you're working on right now that you want to plug real quick?
I was actually thinking of doing a Saquon Barkley article, actually, which is
we're here for it.
Yeah, so glad I hopped on the pod to mention that today. Kind of doing a deep dive into the whole value that he carries as RB14, and like a little bit of the history, a little bit of the future, things like that. I try to do like a redraft perspective and a dynasty perspective. I'm also just looking at any kind of like might do an article about draft gems or guys who like targets, like Travis Etienne's a target, Saquon's a target. Was debating doing like a draft strategy. Like for you, I don't know if you go by either of these two, but do you do any like hero RB or zero RB type methods at drafting, or what's your usual like go-to strat?
So usually it depends on the league I'm in, right? And I think that's something you have to watch. I think I almost did hero RB in our creator league where Derrick Henry's my RB1 and then I have CH as my RB2 and a host of other guys that could fill in. I don't hate that strategy. It really just depends how the first 2 rounds fall. This year, and I'm sure it'll change as we get closer to the draft, but I've caught myself going 0 RB more than ever in my life this year. And I think part of that is I just love some of the top end receivers. Like I think I could sit here and argue 8 guys could be wide receiver 1 this year and like seriously debate that with you. I think you look at Jefferson and Kupp and Mike Evans is a sleeper. Pittman might be a sleeper for that. I mean, there's
like Diggs and Chase and
Stephon Diggs doesn't even get in the conversation and dude's got, a springboard opportunity there. So Chase, there's so many guys right there that I want as many of those surefires as I think I can get. And I feel like they're closer surefires than some of the running backs. I'm with the top portion of running backs this year. I'm so nervous. Like I'm not a big, I hate to say this. Even though he helped me win or do really well in the league last year, I'm really nervous about Eckler. Just because the injury issues have been there. And I think last season was almost a mirage. I don't know that he can repeat that at his current age.
Are you scared of Spiller too? In like that?
No, not really. Cause I didn't like Spiller in the draft. I think Spiller's going to do just fine in the Justin Jackson role that did nothing to take away from anybody. But in my early rounds, I went as close to what I feel like is a sure thing. So I'm avoiding injuries. It's part of the reason Dalvin Cook's bit me in the butt because anytime I draft Dalvin Cook, he gets hurt, and anytime I don't, he goes on to have an RB1 season. So I'm not drafting him this year. Everybody listening, he's going to be an RB1. That's just how that happens. But Swift is going in the first round. Could he be an RB1? Sure, but he hasn't played a full season yet. And I think when you talk about some of those guys, unless I'm at the very top, unless I'm 101, right?
Yeah.
Where I can get Taylor, I'm probably fading the position. I love CMC. If I'm 101 or 102, I'm probably going running back and then seeing what falls. But I've caught myself in the middle of late rounds. I'm going receiver sometimes. I just think CeeDee Lamb's another guy that could be a wide receiver 1. That's a good episode. We need to do an episode of what guys could be the wide receiver 1 because I think you can argue almost 8 guys. Anyways.
For sure, yeah. I'm similar. I do been a little bit more on the zero RB because like you said, there's so many receivers that could be the overall RB1 or WR1. And also there's a lot of value running backs in like rounds 3 and 4, like
5
David
and 6.
Montgomery, Travis Etienne, Dobbins. Like you get all these guys like a little bit later, and they could finish RB1 like as RB1. So definitely, I would probably most drafts I've been starting, or most mocks I've been starting wide receivers back to back, and then 3 and 4 I go running backs back to back.
Well, in so many leagues I'm in now, I don't know about you, are going where you have to start 3 receivers, and it kind of just pushes you that direction that much more. I can kind of substitute my running backs, right? I think CEH, is a value where he's going. You mentioned some of the other guys already that I would think of. Miles Sanders actually averaged as much per carry as Nick Chubb and Jonathan Taylor last year. Just food for thought on that one. Gainwell, Rashad White, James Conner. I mean, there's so many guys that are values that I don't have to spend a first or second round pick on.
For sure, yeah. So I think this might be the year of the zero RB.
Zero RB. And then you got oh gosh, we're just gonna keep going. Another episode.
Yeah, we'll do another one, guys.
Thank you for listening. Follow for FF's sake on all social media platforms and search for us wherever you get your podcasts.